Hey, Walter Sorrells back with more tips for the knife maker. Today, Mosaic pins. So every knife has to have a handle, obviously, something to hold on to. And in most modern knives, those handles are made from two little slabs of material. They could be wood, they could be bone, they could be some kind of synthetic material. And then there are a couple of pins that run through them that help keep that handle scale on the knife itself. So Mosaic pins are little decorative pins that are added to the handles of knives. They add a little touch of personalization to the knife, and they also, help functionally to hold the handle together. So today we're going to make some Mosaic pins. We're going to show you some different techniques that will allow you to customize Mosaic pins, make them however you want. So this will give you a chance to do something distinctive to your knife. Today's video is going to be short and sweet. Mosaic pins are small decorative pins that are used to secure the handles of knives. They're made in long sections, and then you can chop them up and use them however you want. The basic idea is that by combining different shapes and colors and types of metal inside metal tubes, you can create little patterns that give an accent to the handle of your knife. Why make them yourself? Aside from the fact that you can customize them and come up with your own unique designs, a 1 foot long piece of Mosaic pin can cost $30 or more. So you can save a little cash by doing them yourself. So what you need are different size tubes of various metals, various small rods, and some epoxy. That's about it for material. For tools, you'll need a small syringe. You can buy brass, copper, nickel, silver, and stainless steel rods and tubes from hobby supply places, metal suppliers, and knife-making supply houses. 1/4-inch tubes and 1/16 inch rods are a good place to start, but the more stock you have, the more options you have. Tubes are available in any number of sizes, including 1/8, 3/16, 1/4-inch, etc. You can get round tubes, square tubes, hexagonal tubes. The thinner the tube walls, the more options you have. But basically, it's up to you. You can do whatever you want. There are really no rules about it. Look in knife-making supply catalogs, and you can see plenty of examples of pretty neat-looking Mosaic pins. I've tried several approaches to making Mosaic pins. I'll show you a couple of them, and then you can see what works best for you. Basically, it's pretty simple, though. You just jam a bunch of rods or wires or small tubes or any combination of those inside a larger tube. Then you pump in some epoxy. And that's about it. So here's the first one we'll do. In this one, I'm using 6 1/16 inch brass rods, one 1/16 inch 303 stainless steel rod, and 1/4-inch copper tubing. This will give a nice contrast in colors. So what I'll do is arrange all the rods so that the stainless steel rod is in the middle. Then I'll tape them together so they don't get out of order. I want that stainless steel rod in the center. If I don't tape them together, it might end up on the outside, and that's not what I want. If you're going to do a ton of these at once, you probably want to use 60-minute epoxy, but if you're only doing 1 or 2 at once, 5-minute epoxy gives you plenty of working time. Now, you can use the epoxy straight if you want, but I like to add a little color. You can find all kinds of dry colors at art supply stores that are made for mixing with paints. There are also liquid variants. Some of them are compatible with epoxy, some of them aren't. You'll have to experiment a little, but all the dry ones should work fine with epoxy. Once it's mixed up, I'll add my tint to the epoxy. Not too much, just a little dab will do you. If you get too much tint in there, the epoxy will get kind of hard to work. So now I glob it into the syringe and then use the syringe to force it down the tube. Once it gooshes out a little, that's a technical knife making term. Once it gooshes out, goosh a little more on the rods. shove them back in the tube, then use the syringe to force a little more epoxy through. You don't want air pockets, so don't be shy about getting it everywhere. That's why I'm wearing rubber gloves. And that's about it, folks. Alright, here I'll show you a couple of other approaches. In this one, I'll use a 1/4 inch copper tube again, an 1/8 inch square brass rod, and a bunch of little jewelry wire. I'll tape it up so that everything's oriented correctly. I want 3 little wires on each side of that square. If I don't tape it, they'll kind of get out of order. More gooshing. And we're done. Okay, so what about this? 1/8 inch tube, mix some epoxy with a red liquid tint, goosh it, bam. That's all she wrote. Train your monkey to do this one. Yeah? Alright, that was so much fun, I'm doing another one. Okay, so here's the one single technical note in this entire thing of any importance. The mouth of your syringe has to be smaller than the internal diameter of the tube. You want to be able to kind of jam it up in there so that you can force the epoxy in without it coming out all over your workbench. If you don't, you'll just end up with a puddle of epoxy and nothing goes into the tube. Well, did that last one seem a little simplistic? Alright, let's take one of those 1/8 inch tubes full of red, and then we'll put them inside another tube. This time, a 303 stainless tube. Then we'll pump in some blue epoxy. So we got red inside the little brass tube, and then we got blue outside of that. I've intentionally set it so that the brass tube is off-center. Who says a Mosaic pen has to be symmetrical? Careful, guys, I'm going buck wild here. Alright, how about this? A 3/16 inch brass tube. Now I'm going to fill it with jeweler's wire. Some of these little wires are copper centered and some of them are something else. I think it's just some kind of cheap pot metal. But anyway, we'll get some wires in there that are kind of silver looking and some that are kind of copper looking. Gives it a little contrast. So this one's not really geometrical, it's just kind of random chance. It comes out how it comes out. Now we'll force in some red epoxy. Want to see how this one looks on an actual knife? Click here. Or at the end of the video, which is not very far from now, we'll give you another chance. So, here we go. A sample of what you can do. As you can see, the possibilities here are endless. Color, contrast, shapes. Good knife making's in the details. Add a little accent to your next knife, see the difference it makes. Alright, so you want to see some knives that use these Mosaic pins? Here are a couple videos that'll spotlight those pins. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel and check out my website, waltersorrellsblades.com, where you can find more of my work. You'll also find plenty more videos there that you can't find on YouTube with very, very detailed information about all aspects of Japanese blade making. Also, like me on Facebook at Walter Sorrells Blades.